This is my second installment of the 90th anniversary devotions that I'm going to be giving, and the first one was with Colonel Pete and the Bosches. This one I want to talk about the Hoeger boys, John and Augie Hoeger. Photo on your table. It's a photo of them. Not sure when that was taken. Augie's on the left and John's on the right. John was a little older than Augie, and I want to tell you a little bit about them. Their father, Dad, was the founder of the society, as we all know. There were 7 kids in the family. These were the only boys. Their sister, Billy Wilcox, we had the memorial service yesterday at the village. It's Greg's mother. And the Hoeger children, they all had this very unique characteristic, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But get some of the particulars out of the way. Augie and John were both ministers, like their father. Augie came to the society earlier than John. He was actually an administrator at Parkston, South Dakota, and then Olathe, Kansas, and then was on the national board in 1959. And then he didn't want to become the executive director, but was convinced to do that in 1963. So when he came on board, Dad Hoeger was towards the end of his ministry, and they were really looking for someone to come in and fill that void. John came in 1966. He was an administrator at Hastings, Nebraska, and then came to central office, or now the national campus, in '72. And Augie was president for 24 years. When he came, we had 68 facilities and 3,000 beds. And when he left, we had 185 facilities and 24,000 beds. So there was a tremendous amount of growth during that those 2 decades, or 2.5 decades, that Augie was in charge. And then when he retired, John became president for 2 years before he retired. It was interesting the way John and Augie related to each other. They, one was in charge of the regional directors, and the other was in charge of all the other departments within central office. And true to their nature, every 3 years or so, they would just switch jobs. They didn't change their title or anything. They just decided, well, why don't we just change? I mean, they're so unassuming and absolutely no pride whatsoever. They thought, yeah, that'd work out pretty good. So a little bit about them, but them as persons and the family that they were in, it was clearly obvious that God was primary in their life. They didn't have God in a box anywhere and bring him out on Sundays or anything else. It was very evident that they were led by the Lord and took no measure to soften that at all. So they were always right out there in front with that. But they did it in such a humble way that it didn't turn anybody off. It was actually brought people into them. They both loved to laugh. They had a sense of humor, and were pretty quick-witted. They made you feel important. They were very approachable, just really easygoing folks. As you can see the photos, very inviting. Augie, in his 24 years, had made wonderful decisions. He did make one really bad decision that I'm sure that he regretted right up to the end, but he hired me. So he's to blame, the guy on the left. Anyway, both Augie and John were great tennis players and enjoyed that game. John was a little different than Augie, obviously, but John's personality was at work. He was the bottom line guy. He was always concerned about, it's the first time I had ever heard the term or phrase, no margin, no mission. So he was always looking at the financial side, but it wasn't for the sake of developing some big bankroll or anything else. He was just saying, how could we use any excess to further the mission of God through the work that we're doing here. So he was very focused on making sure we were running effectively and efficiently and could reinvest those dollars back into the corporation. He had a little tagline that he used. He would hate this devotion because it would already be past time. He liked really short devotions, and whenever he saw folks gathering around the water cooler, and if he thought maybe that was a little excessive, he would always say, "Hi ho, hi ho," the old the Seven Dwarfs thing, "Hi ho, it's off to work we go." So he ended pretty much all of his devotions that way as well. So he was got down to business. You always knew where you were with John if he felt like you were loitering around a little bit too much. Anyway, they both had such a radical approach to business, and obviously with their faith and action, they totally different from anything that I had ever experienced in my years. I worked as an auditor and got opportunity to see a lot of different companies from a lot of different viewpoints, and obviously that was drawn to the society by that. I think of the first beatitude, poor in spirit, when I think of the Hoegers. And poor in spirit's always a little difficult to understand, but really, I think it's more with the being humble and gentle and realizing that all that they have, all their gifts and blessings come from the Lord, and that it's nothing that they did or brought. There's no sense of pride because of that. So they were definitely humble and totally amazing. They were amazing leaders, amazing servants, amazing men. Augie developed Alzheimer's at a pretty early age, and in fact, John has Alzheimer's right now, and he's at our facility in Kissimmee with his wife, Kathy. And they're a great family. It was always John and Kathy, and it was always Augie and Betty. And Betty, I saw her yesterday, and she's doing great at 88, and just an amazing person. But Augie and I went to visit. It was about 2005, I suppose. I was up in the cities, and he was at our facility in Inver Grove, and got a chance to visit with him. He probably didn't know who I was, but it was typical Augie. He always wanting to know things. How's the family? He probably didn't know anything about our history together, but yet he was very gracious. And later I was talking to the administrator in Grove, Pam Schultz, and she goes, "Well, it's just amazing having Augie around. He just walks around, and because of his Alzheimer's, he wandered quite a bit, but he would always encounter the staff, and including Pam, and he would say, 'I don't know what you do, but I know it's important.'" And I think that's the Augie message I want to leave with you folks is, I don't know what you all do. You know what you do, and you know what's important. It is important to the work of the society and the mission of the society. But for Pam, she said that had such an amazing effect on her staff and on herself. So I'll leave that Augie message with you. Dad Hager's last address to the annual meeting before Augie took over, he had this quote. He said, "Look to the cross and find the value of your work." And thinking of that, it's our giving back to the Lord, so it's placing our work at the foot of the cross each and every day, and being proud of the work that we do serving the residents.